Hi, and thank you for tuning in to the Daily Dose for Spiritual Growth. So glad that you're here today. We are finishing out our week on God's righteousness, that body armor of righteousness that is made possible through salvation. And also, we can put it on by doing what is right. I want to read some interesting verses to you found in the book of First Peter, chapter 3. And this is maybe not how you thought I would land the plane this week, but I think it's important to talk about this. And so in First Peter chapter 3, beginning in verse 13, this is what God's word says. It says, "Now who will want to harm you if you are eager to do good? But even if you suffer for doing what is right, God will reward you for it. So don't worry or be afraid of their threats. Instead, you must worship Christ as Lord of your life. And if someone asks about your hope as a believer, always be ready to explain it. But do this in a gentle and respectful way. Keep your conscience clear. Then, if people speak against you, they will be ashamed when they see what a good life you live because you belong to Christ. Remember, it is better to suffer for doing good, if it is God's will, than to suffer for doing wrong." I think this is so interesting. And because we ended with that thought, that's where I want to begin. That's probably the freshest in your mind. You're going to suffer sometimes for doing what is right. In extreme terms, that's called persecution. And we see that actively around our world, even threatening the lives of believers. But even here in America, if that's where you're watching from, persecution is still a real thing. You can be criticized. You can have limitations for your beliefs. You can try to be silenced on social media. All sorts of things can happen if you're a believer in standing up for what is right and what is good. Just a few weeks ago, we had an incident with someone being assassinated. Many are calling him a modern day martyr. I don't know your belief on that, but what I do know is that martyrdom, having your life be taken from you for your faith in Jesus Christ, is still a very real thing today. And although at this point in America, you might not feel as if that is a crisis across the country that we're experiencing where Christians are being taken out left and right, but a day may come. And so what we need to be reminded from these scriptures is that God says, even if you suffer for doing what is right, God will honor that. You see, there are times in life where doing what is right will cause us to suffer. What do you mean, Pastor Sarah? Think of Jesus. Was it right for him to go to the cross? Absolutely. That was his mission. That was his purpose. That was God's will for his life. But oh, did he suffer for you and me? You see, if you became a Christian thinking that your life was going to be roses and rainbows, there are so many amazing aspects to following Jesus Christ that is abundance, but it's not without suffering. You see, standing up for our faith means sometimes standing in the face of adversity, criticism, even threats, as we see happening in the day and age of when this was written. He says, don't be afraid of their threats. That means someone was threatening, right? And so what we need to learn from this is that when we do the right thing, it doesn't always mean that everything will go great. And what I've seen with a lot of believers is that they're like, hey, I tried that out, but then something bad happened. I must have done it wrong. God doesn't really love me. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Read this verse again. Your life facing trial, we have to remember there's an enemy. It's the whole reason why we're taking these weeks to talk about the armor of God. We're not just putting this on to take some selfies and look cool. We're wearing this to protect ourselves from the enemy who's trying to attack us. We talked about the belt of truth last week. In this world, we have to know and stand on what is true. And this week, we're talking about the protection of the breastplate, the body armor of righteousness. We have to protect our hearts. But we also know that in a battle, we can get wounded. We can get hurt. We can get taken out. God protects us. But as we give our life over to him, as we trust him even if it requires suffering. And so I want to encourage you, if you find yourself today and you feel that you're suffering for your faith, stand firm. God sees you and he wants to encourage you that he is with you. In modern day terms, what that might mean, it might mean that you have been treated different within your family unit once you decide to become a follower of Christ. It may be now in a couple of weeks when you get together for Thanksgiving, you know that they're talking about you. You're not as welcome. It's created dissension. Maybe in your workplace because you've stood up for your beliefs. It hasn't been popular. And maybe you've lost some friendships over it. And maybe there's some gossip or slander going on. Maybe all sorts of things could happen for standing up for truth. But I want to encourage you, wouldn't you rather suffer for doing what's good, if that's God's will, as this verse says, or suffer for doing what's wrong? We all can choose that. It's harder to stand and live what is good. And so as Ephesians 6 says, our theme verses, stand firm so that when the battle is done, you will still be standing your ground. Hey, I want to thank you so much for tuning in this week. And hopefully you've been challenged to think about righteousness in a different way. I want to encourage you to come to Shrewsbury Assembly tomorrow as Pastor Nabil is still continuing our current series. It would be great for you to be there. We'd love for you to hear what he has to share, to experience corporate worship and being together. But otherwise, we'll see you again on Monday for another daily dose for spiritual growth.